Should be, there we go. Okay. Marc Peycker, hello.
Hello, Lords.
Welcome to Eyes Wide Open.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Or actually, this is Algarve Amplified. Welcome to Algarve Amplified. We've changed our approach.
Algarve Amplified now.
Algarve Amplified, at least while we're here.
Okay.
You know, yeah, thanks for coming on at such short notice. I really appreciate it. Being the first new guest in our new studio. Hopefully I'm going to be in this one for some time to come, because I've been shuffling around from place to place over the last 2 years, and this is hopefully going to be our new home for a while. So thanks for coming in at such short notice. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure. I just happened to have a free day, so it was a good synchronization.
Yeah, and we have a mutual friend, is Jean de Baker, and that's how we've come to meet, and that's how you've come to be on the show, which is always good to...
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because he had sent me the the video of his interview, so that's how I discovered your channel.
Yeah, because you sent me an email, and said how much you enjoyed the chat with Jean, and asked me to have a look at a podcast you've done yourself, which was really interesting, talking about Tartaria, which I want to touch upon later, because you've got an interesting spin on that. Yeah,
I have my own perspective on the whole Tartarian, I guess you might say, movement.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess that's what it's turned into, a whole movement, isn't it? Which initially it just began with some, internet videos. But we'll get to that. So, but maybe first is, how have you found yourself here in Portugal? Because you're from Belgium, I believe.
Yes, Belgium. So basically, I like to say, because that's how I experience it, that the land here called to me. And... that is part of the relationship I have with planet Earth. So we all have a relationship with the planet, whether we are aware of it or not. And she has her own ideas and desires about where she would like us to be on her body, because we all have a specific, very specific and unique energy signature. And that unique energy signature interacts in a very specific way with the energy of the Earth, according to the place where we are. Because, of course, her energy expresses in different ways, depending on the location on the planet's body. So you might compare it, liken it with the way an acupuncture needle is going to work on the meridians of the human body. So
the humans are like acupuncture needles on the body of Earth?
Yeah. And the more aware humans have a more defined and deeper impact. So in my opinion, the more aware someone is, the more the planet is going to be specific in her desire to have that specific individual at that specific location. And I had known for a while that I wasn't going to spend all of my life in Belgium, because I had a growing feeling that I was basically done with my native country. It's a small country, territory-wise, and I've exchanged with many people about it, and we share that same feeling of a kind of compression that people are subjected to in Belgium. It's like a feeling of confinement. It's
like that in England too, even, it's a bit bigger than Belgium, but it's really packed.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable when you come to Portugal.
Yeah.
A country with a landmass maybe similar to England, and there's only 10 million people here compared to 70 million in the UK, and there's so much more space.
Yeah. And I didn't actually know where I was going to move to. And at some point, I started to think of Portugal without any specific reason. But Portugal had been on the back of my mind for a long time. Meaning that I had a desire to visit Portugal, but like going on vacation and explore the country, not live in Portugal. And that had started decades ago, and for whatever reason, it had never materialized. And in 2018, 2019, it started to surface in my awareness in a really insistent way. And at some point, I said, okay, I guess that's where I'm supposed to go. So I started to do my, little research, and I quickly narrowed the focus down to Algarve. So from Algarve, I narrowed the focus down to 2 areas that seemed to carry the most attracting power to me. And these were the Tavira area. I know many people have that same experience.
Yeah, we did exactly the same thing.
And then Lagos.
Yeah.
So
we started in Tavira when we arrived. So we came, it was, well, you start in Faro, don't you? And then it was like, okay, which direction do we go? We went to Tavira, beautiful, quintessential Portuguese town, probably some of the best architecture in Algarve, because architecture isn't great here overall. It seems like there's the old buildings are few and far between, but Tavira seems to have that quintessential Portuguese vibe to it. But it felt a little bit too old for me. I don't really know. And we came to Lagos and Luge, and we loved it.
It's very interesting what you're saying there. Finally, I decided, okay, research is all good and well, but I need to actually experience how it feels to be there in order to make my choice. So I planned a 2 weeks stay. And funnily enough, I spent almost all of my stay in Tavira.
Yeah.
And I only came here for a day. But the moment I stepped off the train, I immediately realized that I was meant to come here.
You'd found your acupuncture point.
The feeling was so strong, so strong. I've actually never felt that way about any place in my entire life. It was all my cells were buzzing, literally, and I was giggling like a lunatic on the street because that feeling of recognition was so strong, and I was like, I am home. I am home. It's here. It's here. I get it. And that's all I needed to know.
So how long have you been in Lagos?
Basically, I had just stepped off the train.
But how long have you been here, though?
Oh, now you mean 3 years and a half.
Yeah. That's when we first started coming to Portugal, around about the same time. And we might have been in Tavira at the same period, because that's what we did our first time we were here. Spent 3 months almost in Tavira, and then came back a second time, and I thought, we've got to go somewhere else. So we traveled all along the Algarve coast, stopping at each place, because like you say, research is one thing, but you have to go in and experience it yourself, don't you, to be able to make a proper decision about those things. And we just kept moving along until we got to Lagos, and I went, this is it. This is the place.
But the interesting part about Tavira is that it has almost 30 churches. It's not a big city, it's just a town. But it has almost 30 churches and just as much convents.
Didn't know that.
So that is highly, highly unusual for a town that size, which means that it was a very strong energetic point on the body of the planet. And with all these religious buildings, they have bled it dry, basically. And that's why you have that feeling of...
Well, it's famous for salt, isn't it? Tavira salt, which is a very important mineral in the whole
because of the
holistic earth.
The Ria Formosa, the marshland.
Some of the best salt in the entire world is in Tavira. I wonder if that's got any kind of connection to the idea of, you're talking about the earth as a holistic organism, as an organism in and of itself, and it has its own consciousness, and we are part of the Earth's consciousness. I was looking at a summary of a book recently called Enlivened Rock Powders, and it's like this kind of gardener guy, like biodynamic farming, but he explains the power of rock powders, like, activated charcoal, zeolite, or Damascus earth, or, all of those clays and stuff, and how they're part of the earth from a biodynamic perspective. in that, you know, the earth mantle is like its skeleton, the soil is like its digestion, the water in the ocean is like the blood, you know, and the humans on top of the earth's surface are like part of the consciousness of the earth. And it's funny that I've been reading that over the last few days, that you've, you know, touched on that topic in your own different perspective about, you know, finding a place in Lagos, being drawn here by some other force and some other power, and, you know, using the acupuncture as the analogy or the metaphor. I thought that's quite interesting. So what do you think, why do you think you have been drawn here on a metaphysical level perspective? What do you think, you know, your work here is to do?
When you say why, it's a question of resonance. It's a question of resonance of your own energy with the energy of the place, because that resonance is going to generate specific harmonics. And everything major in our life is part of what I would call a soul agreement. So people call that contracts, but that's too much of a legalistic terminology for me. I call it soul level agreement. So we cannot live on planet Earth, or any other planet for that matter, without having a soul level agreement with the being who is that planet or any other type of reality. So when a decision is made at a soul level to incarnate on a specific planet, an agreement is being made with the spirit of the planet. And it's an extremely, extremely deep agreement, but also an extremely complex one, which the complexity is such that it's absolutely mind-boggling for the linear mind. The linear mind cannot possibly hope to grasp the incredible complexity of that agreement. No quantum supercomputer would be able to grasp the complexity of it. I'm saying that because...
is it on an intuitive level, though, more than a logical or reasoning level? Is it something you feel rather than something you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And any major decision in life, to me, is actually a consequence of the soul agreement. So the way I see it, it was part of my soul agreement with the Earth that at a certain time I would move to this place in order to generate a very specific energetic alchemy with the Earth herself, in order to be an influence of a certain type on the human collective and beyond, because these are extremely critical times. When I say critical, I don't mean that in a dramatic way, even though there is a lot of drama going on. I mean in terms of the importance of the moment, which is absolutely pivotal in terms of the evolution of the planet herself and the evolution of the human collective and of all species who are living on planet Earth. And it is also a pivotal moment beyond the planet herself, because this planet has an incredible level of influence on the rest of the universe, which runs contrary to a lot of the narratives that are being proposed to us. Because usually we are being made to feel like the little ones, the children, the unevolved ones, the immature ones. And that might be true at a superficial level, because in chronological terms, the Terran, meaning the Earth human, we are a really young race compared to other races. But
when you say we are a pretty young race,
Yes.
do you mean humanity's existence upon Earth compared to other life forms on other planets in other places?
Yeah.
Let's go into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Where you got that idea? Where did you draw that insight from?
So this is something I've been studying for a long time, a really long time. As a child, I was already very drawn to books that were talking about UFOs and extraterrestrial contacts. I had read about the story of George Adamski and all these, let's say, early events, early from a modern European perspective. Because it's not really at all, but from the perspective of the framework of reference of modern European mainstream society. These were early events. So after I had my spiritual awakening, it shed a different light on the whole theme of contacts between Earth humans and other races, civilizations, and visitations and presence of extraterrestrials and their influence on human affairs.
Because it's always topical. You know, UFOs and extraterrestrial life is always topical. I'm sure we've been talking about these ideas for centuries, if not longer. But it's really hot now because obviously with Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson doing, a massive podcast that's been seen now millions and millions of times, maybe 11 million. And Tucker Carlson, who is what you would probably call Christian right. Makes quite a serious revelation on Joe Rogan's show, which he confirmed his belief in UFOs, which I was like, what the hell is he talking about? But what I thought was really interesting was his take, probably through the Christian filter, was that they weren't UFOs from deep space. They were other entities from a different dimension. Because I'm not really convinced that deep space even exists. I don't know how far it goes, and I'm not just going to believe the guys in the white coats, because we know what the guys in the white coats tell you, whatever they're paid to tell you, right?
You could also say that they are priests of
totally scientism.
Exactly. Scientism is not science; it's a dogmatic religion.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly not by chance that its agents wear white robes. like the priests of all religions. There is a very interesting continuity.
There's a hypnotic effect, isn't there, from putting the white robes on?
It means that you have legitimacy and authority above all things. Authority.
But with the whole thing about Tucker Carlson making that revelation and making Joe Rogan a little bit uncomfortable because they had some differences.
I want to,
where are you up to? What's your take on that idea of
that's a very, very good question. I'm really glad you asked that one, because usually these debates are presented to us as either or. And most of the time, that's not the right way to frame the terms of the debate. And with, let's call them ETs, for the sake of the simplicity, with ETs, it's the same. It is not either or, it is and. And. So we have people who come, people and beings, because when you say people, you immediately think humans. So I'm going to say beings. Beings who come from outer space, but from outer space and other dimensions at the same time. Because each reality has its own dimensional spectrum of frequency. So it is very rare that people who come from other planets live in the exact same spectrum of frequencies as we do. So from that point of reference, you can also consider that they come from another dimension. Now, we also have quote-unquote visitors who come from Earth, but from different dimensional realms.
Hollow Earth.
Of Earth. Some come from the Hollow Earth. Some come from...
Because, sorry to interrupt you, because these esoteric ideas, these ideas that give us more insight into what our origins could be, because we live with this amnesia about who are we, where have we come from, where are we going, all those big questions are generally hidden from the population, but it's starting to seep into the mainstream. Tucker Carlson, but also Hollow Earth. My son loves Godzilla, right? And Godzilla now, the latest movies are all about Hollow Earth. And they're going deep into the whole Hollow Earth story. But in order for them to be able to present that idea to the public, they have to go and research the esoteric texts to give it some, credibility. And I took him to watch it in the cinema, and I was like, I've been reading about this on the internet for 10 or 15 years, and now it's seeped into children's movies and stories and narratives, and it's definitely conscious. It's definitely a conscious decision by the people who are controlling the narrative to introduce us to these, wild ideas that the Earth is hollow, or we have extra dimensional beings coming into this reality by Tucker Carlson from Fox News. So, what's your feeling about these ideas now becoming part of the conversation?
I would say that these are signs that the dam is about to break. And I mean by that the dam of secrecy that has been enforced in an extremely stringent way over the last decades. Basically, since the governments of the world started to deliberately interact with certain extraterrestrial groups, and that started in the 30s with the Nazis. Basically, they were the first, and then after that, the US and the Soviet Union. Oh, this is such a complex theme. Let me see, because I don't want to get lost in. I'd like to maintain, if possible, a certain...
Apologies if I've taken you away from the narrative that you wanted to talk about, but it's such a big topic, isn't it?
It's a huge topic. So Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, these are clear signs of the fact that humanity on Earth, because there are humans on other worlds as well, but Earth humanity is starting to wake up from its state of amnesia, from its state of deep hypnotic trance. So that is starting to fall apart, even though there is an incredibly intense effort that is being made to prevent that awakening from happening. It cannot be prevented because it is inevitable. The impulse for it comes from such a deep level of reality that counter movements, if you want, attempts at counteracting that come from much shallower levels of reality. And these much shallower levels of reality, they don't have the power or the authority to prevent it from happening. They can just delay it.
And do you think that's what we're seeing is these delaying tactics? Because we came through a really esoteric magic spell that was cast over humanity during the whole COVID thing. That was like some high level magic spell that they cast over, humanity. And you see the way these same people who are in these same positions, in the choke points in our culture, like the World Economic Forum and all of that crew, right? And they're obsessed with dates like 2030, and originally it was 2050, but they keep bringing it forward, and they seem to be trying to run some kind of operation to a calendar.
Yeah.
And it seems very, very important to them that they hit these dates, and they hit these dates, as accurately as they can. Would you say that those are the groups, the entities, the organizations that are hell-bent on slowing down, as you say, or delaying this inevitable awakening, if that's what you want to call it?
They are absolutely part of that. They are not the deeper... they are not the deepest or the highest, depending on how you want to see it. I'm going to say highest because their model is extremely hierarchical and pyramidal. So using their own system of reference, I will say highest. They're not the highest point in the control system by far. But they are definitely part of that paradigm, that system, that apparatus.
But if someone's trying to stop us, then that implies that there are opposing forces. And there is one force trying to keep humanity imprisoned within this consciousness prison, and then there is another force trying to lead us to a series of awakenings. Is that how you see it? And if so, who are the opposing sides?
Okay, so that's going to require a lot of context.
Go for it.
So I'll try to come at this from the really big picture.
Okay.
The big picture of life. So we live in a universe whose fundamental dynamic is duality. So it's always about contrasting states of experience and contrasting states of expression. So you express a certain way, and then you go to the opposite pole and you express in the opposite way. And it's the movement between these two opposite poles that generate what we call vibration. Vibration is a movement between...
Oscillation, isn't it?
Exactly, between two opposite poles. And that is the fundamental dynamic of this universe. So there is absolutely no place, no dimension, no reality in this universe where duality isn't present. It's just that in the more refined dimensions of life, the more subtle ones, opposites are in harmony. They're in dynamic balance, harmonious balance. Whereas in the more dense realms of existence in this universe, opposites can be in conflict. And so there can be the experience of war, for instance, and there can be what we call evil, which is pure malevolence. So there is a force in this universe that wants to control everything and that wants to exploit everything. Basically, a group of entities. Now, if we talk dimensions, I use as a frame of reference, a model where there are 12 main dimensions in the universe. And there is a very big, shall I say, divide. It's not real, but it's perceived, divide between dimensions 1 to 4 and dimensions 5 to 12. Because 5 to 12 is the realms of harmony. 1 to 4 is where conflict is present, drama.
Where are we in right now?
Where we speak right now is where we are
what number are we
where
in
we are emitting these sounds is the third dimension.
The third dimension, right.
Is the third dimension. But the really interesting part of it is planet Earth exists in all 12 dimensions simultaneously.
Does that imply that we exist at some level on those 12 dimensions?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We are fundamentally multidimensional beings, and Earth humans, contrary to appearances, are the most multidimensional beings of the entire universe, and so is planet Earth. And she is absolutely a unique jewel of the planet, of a planet. That has no equivalent in this universe. But I'll get back to that.
Okay.
The control system, where does it come from? What are the two forces that are in opposition in the drama that we are currently experiencing? There is a group of entities that exist in the upper levels of the fourth dimension. The higher harmonics, the higher octaves of the fourth dimension. And we traditionally tend to refer to these as the gods. And that's certainly how they refer to themselves. And these guys, their whole experience of life and their whole condition as deific entities stem from a really deep insecurity. They are basically afraid of the process of life. They are at a certain point in their cosmic evolutionary journey where they can see what lies ahead, what they need to do, what they are going to need to do in order to complete their cosmic journey, and they don't like what they see. They don't like what they see, and they go, I don't think I would want to go there. You know, I would rather retreat to a place and a state where I am untouchable and I can pull strings, and I don't have to go through all these unpleasant experiences that I'm kind of perceiving down the line. So fundamentally, it is a drive and an impulse to put yourself above the process of life. And it's a really pathological state, you might say, which might surprise many people if we refer to entities that humanity traditionally views as gods. But I would say go and read a few myths about gods and see if they look like sane beings to you. When you
So are we talking about how humans, in ancient Rome and Greece, they understood and experienced what we understand as Greek myths and Greek gods?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about here. That's the and even in Hinduism, there's a whole pantheon of gods, isn't there?
Absolutely.
In Buddhism, there's 35
Absolutely.
or 33.
Yeah. So there are groups of them, there are factions of them.
And what you're saying is that they're entities that exist on the fourth dimension of the 12-dimensional structure and system. Interesting.
It's the upper
one above us
echelons of the fourth dimension has many sub-layers, sub-dimensions.
Yeah.
And they are in the really highest octaves of the fourth dimension. Which is why they are able to fool people into believing that they are at the apex of the universe. They're not. They're at the apex of the fourth dimension. But because there is such a dense membrane, energetic membrane between the fourth dimension and the fifth, to many people when they look, they see clairvoyantly, when they look clairvoyantly, they're going to see all these many sub-levels of the fourth dimension. They're going to be what sits on top of the fourth dimension, and they're going to go, wow, that's the top of the universe. There is nothing above that, because of the thick membrane that is called, esoterically, it's called the Great Void. But what gods do is that because they isolate themselves from the process of life, they also isolate themselves from their own greater being to an extent, from their own soul to a large extent. They cannot cut that connection completely because that's impossible, but they restrict it. Mm-hmm. That's a consequence of their desire of being control freaks, basically, and wanted to.
So what you're suggesting is that the entities or the force of that's resisting humanity's development are the gods that exist on the fourth dimension?
Yes, basically what we are dealing with is an absolutely colossal multidimensional empire.
Wow.
With these guys sitting on top. And because they have restricted to such a very large extent their connection to their own being, they need to find external energy sources to sustain themselves.
Like the Matrix, almost, like the human battery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly like the Matrix. And it is a drive, it is their fundamental drive in life that is a form of insanity. Some people call it, I had some friends who called it the vampire empire, because extracting and harvesting and hoarding energy is their obsession. It's their obsession.
But those myths in human culture exist for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, they're there to give us some kind of narrative insight into these forces that exist beyond the material plane.
Yeah. And the most efficient method that they have found over eons of time is to get as many beings as possible to worship them. Because that energy of worship carries the most potent nourishment for them. Worship is a really distorted energy, by the way. It's the distortion of love. It is not natural. It's not wholesome.
Because I always wondered why a god, a benevolent, omnipotent, all-powerful god would need to be worshipped. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Exactly.
Because only somebody that was insecure would need to be worshipped.
Exactly.
To feed that, pathological narcissism, if you like.
Yeah. And they are very insecure beings. They are very insecure beings, which is why they need that constant reinforcement. But also, it is their food source. It is their food source, and it is their way to stay in power, which is their primary obsession. And I actually know a woman who's... okay. Let me put it this way. We go through an absolutely astounding amount of experiences through our journey in this universe, and we play an astounding number of roles. And at some point, one of the possibilities we have is to play that role of being a god. And I know a woman who had an experience of remembrance. She remembered her time as a god, long time ago. And it was a very, very visceral experience for her. And she explained that she was in that state of obsession, of wanting to gather ever more power, and getting her energetic tentacles, so to speak, into as many beings as possible, to suck as much energy as possible. And it was absolutely relentless. She couldn't think of anything else until she had until she one day, because that ultimately happens to any god, one day she snapped out of it. She woke up from that crazed state of greed. And that was the start of a very different kind of journey through horrible levels of guilt. But suffice it to say that the gods are the ultimate control freaks.
Mm-hmm.
And from the thrones of the gods, so to speak, and of their leader, who is the god of gods, who was called in the ancient Gnostic writings the Demiurge.
The Demiurge, yeah.
From
the Gnostics, under the idea of the Demiurge, suggest that the earth or the material world was created by the Demiurge.
Yeah, to me that's a misunderstanding. There is a truth to it, but I believe that the material world is a perfectly valid experience and not part of the distortion as such.
Because what they say is that the cycle of samsara, if you like, of reincarnation, is in order for the demiurge and the gods to keep harvesting the same souls and preventing humanity from leaving and going to the next advanced realms of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's kind of what
There's
I understand the Gnostic position to be.
There's a truth to that, definitely. Meaning that they have created a prison here. They have created a prison because the energy that a human generates, again, is the most potent energy in the universe. So if they can get a human to worship them, that means that they're going to derive such an intense stream flow of energy that they will want to keep it at all costs. And this is why the control system we have been living under here is the most intense and the most complex and the most multi-layered and the most sophisticated anywhere in the universe. It's because the energy they're getting from here is unparalleled.
Because, I mean, it's really, really interesting, insightful way of giving reference to the events that we see in this experience. Because, you know, when we see these acts of evil done for evil's sake, it doesn't make any sense. Why would these, you know, institutions of power, why are they just seem to be committed to doing evil acts, right? It just doesn't make any logical sense to me. But also this idea of planning over generations, like why would humans plan for things and work towards a goal that not only will they not see, their children won't see, their grandchildren won't see, because of the time scale that we have on this planet, it's, 75, 85 years. Makes more sense if the person or entity that is running such long range plans has a different time scale, over what they're able to see and develop. So it does give some answers to some of the unanswerable questions of why we see these, these really, really dark events, that we've witnessed over the last few years, and about these, these people carrying out these acts. Would you say then that the entities on the fourth dimension, the gods, are using human vehicles, like the World Economic Forum? Are they the agents on Earth, and they're acting out this agenda? I mean, you ever remember when we were growing up and there was like films like Jason and the Argonauts, right? Really bad stop motion animation, but that's kind of what you had in the idea. There would be these human actors on the material plane, and the camera or the story would cut to the gods, and they'd be looking, through a lake or a reflective mirror,
a scrying pool.
Yeah, would you say there's some kind of that's a good analogy for what's going on?
It is. It is. They are acting through intermediaries.
Yeah. Are those are they aware of that? Do you think? Or,
some of them.
Yeah.
It's an extremely. Remember, I said we are dealing with a colossal multidimensional empire.
Yeah.
So the pyramid has many, many levels, and the gods are sitting at the top, and on top of them is the god of gods. But somewhere in the pyramid you find human minions.
Yeah.
Many, many worlds, even galaxies, have been assimilated into their paradigm. So it's vast. It's really vast. At the scale of the universe, it's relatively small. The overwhelming majority of the universe is not part of their empire. But seen from our vantage point, it's absolutely humongous. It's gigantic. I said entire galaxies are part of it. And multiple dimensions as well. So their reach is really, really very, very great. But on the subject of the minions, there has been a lot of talk about the Illuminati families, and there's a truth to that as well. But usually we are being told that there are 13 of them. I don't believe that's exactly the case. For me, there are 6. Are
they in the room with us now?
Can't see any of them.
Are there 6 families in the room with us now?
So these 6 families, they specialize in a certain area of human activity. There is the economy, there is the military, there is politics, which are all ways, of course, to control human society. So that's how they specialize, and at the head of each family is one individual. Now, they used to report to one single guy who was on top of them all, who was not from here. He was an extraterrestrial.
Nimrod.
Yeah. Well, his traditional name, his most ancient name on Earth is Enlil. Enlil. That's how he was called in the Sumerian writings of old, Enlil. But he's been known by many other names, like Yahweh, for instance.
Okay.
So really nasty guy, by the way. Really, really nasty individual.
Demiurge.
You might say that he's a kind of manifestation, lower level manifestation of the Demiurge energy, because he really he's an expression, to be more specific, of the dark side of the Demiurge. Because that's another very interesting point. Yeah, that one is really worth explaining. So that empire has a dark side and a light side, which is like the rest of the universe, but in a different way, in a distorted way. The universe has light and dark isn't particularly bad. Dark isn't evil. It is a force of resistance. So,
the light is evil in that framework.
It is twisted.
Yeah.
It is twisted. It is a synthetic twist of natural light. So, in the natural universe, light and dark, they cooperate. So, dark will be the force that opposes your creative momentum, that will prompt you to be even more creative in order to overcome the obstacle that the darkness is presenting to you in an honorable way, in a decent, honorable way. In the empire of the gods, darkness is what we call evil. It is malevolent, it is pervert. Whereas light has qualities of synthetic light, I mean, self-righteousness, sanctimonious superiority.
Well, look at the shift at the moment. It's an LED light. We're just entombed, aren't we, in LED light? That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's their own version of light.
Yeah.
And their own version of love, which is controlling love, conditional love, even though they claim that it is unconditional, it is not. It comes with conditions. If you don't abide by their protocols of behavior, they will, for instance, show you the cold shoulder. They will get passive aggressive with you. That's how synthetic light typically operates. It's controlling love.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Jerry Marzinski, and Jerry Marzinski is an American psychotherapist, worked in the American prison system and mental hospitals in America for over 30 years. And he had enormous experience with dealing with high-level criminals, but specifically paranoid schizophrenics. And he came to an absolutely radical realization and insight that paranoid schizophrenics are actually being possessed by entities, and the voices that are speaking to them are not in the paranoid schizophrenic's head. They are actually being possessed and used as human vehicles. And this guy speaks with so much authority, credentials, right? And the way he explains his stories, it's difficult to find a hole or a gap in what he's saying. And he talks about how these entities, if you like, would respond to certain spiritual remedies. So if he wanted to get rid of them, he'd say a prayer, or he wanted to get them out the room, he would say a psalm, and it was a really, really deep dive into the spiritual dynamics that are going on behind the scenes. But this modern society uses terms like psychoanalysis or paranoid schizophrenia to move us away from our traditional understanding of these things, these ideas of light and dark and spiritual entities and extraterrestrials. And is that kind of a way to understand these esoteric ideas of light and dark?
It's related to it, yeah. So regarding that specific theme, I would say that most people who are being institutionalized these days and are being prisoners of that psychiatric system, in the past they would have been helped by shamans who would have dealt with the entities.
But that's interesting, isn't it? That we've been detached. We have been detached away from people like shamans who have the ability to bridge the material world and the invisible world, as it were. And it's kind of been mocked or derided, and they want us completely in this materialist prison where we don't have any access to the spiritual, the other dimensions of our consciousness. And clearly that's like the movie villains that you've just described. Probably they're the ones that are manifesting and operating that system. What are the forces of good, right? If we have this polarity, if we have this oscillation within the universe between light and dark, black and white, and we have this push-pull between our experience in the universe on Earth and this idea that we're heading towards a more broader, wider, bigger awakening, well, what's the pull against the push?
Okay. Yeah, so there are multiple levels to that. Fundamentally, the forces that are our best allies, I would say, are the forces from the natural order of life that are not part of that bipolar, disordered empire dynamics, where you have that split into equally distorted opposite poles that are at war with one another, but that ultimately work for the same forces on top. So the beings from the natural order of life, they all know who we are as Earthlings. They all know what very specific role we play in the universe and for the universe. They know about the unique mission of planet Earth and her humanity, and they root for us. They have greatest respect for what we're doing here and how extremely difficult it is. And they don't intervene directly for the moment because it's not the time yet, and because it is our task basically. So they give support, but they're not going to take the steering wheel of our hands. Now, because we are in an awakening process that has stages to it, we are at the stage right now where we are liberating ourselves. We are in the process of liberating ourselves from what you could call the old cabal, meaning the people and their multidimensional allies and puppet masters that have been in charge for the last few millennia. And that was the darkest point, because the imposition that we have been subjected to has come in waves. It started a few 100,000 years ago, and it got progressively stronger, progressively worse in successive waves. And the last of these waves touched us about 6,000 years ago, and things have been at their worst since, the worst we have known in our history as Earth humans.
Because I'm reading a lot at the moment about The Secret Teachings of All Ages, by Manly P. Hall, amazing book. It's like an encyclopedia of all of these lost esoteric ideas that have been passed down to us from history. Right? And all of the roads don't necessarily lead to Rome. They more likely lead to Atlantis and this long lost civilization, this more advanced civilization that humanity was once a part of, and that we have, that man has fallen, right? And I don't know where that fits into the scheme of things, but it seems to me that this is a thread that runs back through time, and that at one point we were aware, we were conscious of our true nature and our true origins, and that we've forgotten through this collective amnesia, and that's what we're not so much awakening to something new, we're just remembering who and what we really are.
It's actually both.
Yeah.
It's actually both. It's a coming together of our memory of ancient times before the imposition started to assert itself, and what we are to become, what is the destiny of the human race. So our future self, so to speak. It's a coming together of our ancient self and our future self.
Because we're at a crossroads right now, I feel. A
This
really
is
intense
the
crossroads between this idea of a transhuman, technotronic future in which human blends with machine, or there is another path that we can take where it becomes a spiritual awakening, where we don't need any extra help from machines, and it's a consciousness shift rather than a mechanical shift, if you like. Would you say that's something that you...
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. And we are right now in what, in religious terms, is called the end times.
Kali Yuga. Bit different?
I don't know Hinduism well enough to say, yes, it's Kali Yuga. I'm vaguely familiar with, Kali Yuga, but you could say.
Go on. So sorry, we're in end times, so it's
end
more
times, which in
a
more,
Western philosophical perspective.
More with a deeper understanding of things, I would say we are reaching the point that is the completion of the cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a point where multiple cycles that are nested within one another all reach our point of conclusion at the same time. So it's like a fractal process.
Mm-hmm.
And it cycles within cycles within cycles. And from the most small scale one to the most massive one. The most massive one happening at a universal scale is the closure of an eon of evolution in the universe.
Mm.
And simultaneously here on Earth, we go through the conclusion of what you could call an era.
Simply.
Simply. So in this scenario, it is happening, it is unfolding in several successive stages. The stage we are at right now is the ousting of the old cabal. The human part and the extraterrestrial and interdimensional races that were behind it, which was the darkest aspect of it all. Mm-hmm. It was really the dark part. Really, really dark. What we are engaging in right now is an other type of imposition, which is the technological one. One of the gods is the god of what we usually are calling artificial intelligence. And one of my friends and great mentor, George Kavasilas, is calling it technological intelligence because it's a more fitting term.
Because it's not artificial. It's
not really.
It's
not really
specific,
artificial.
Isn't it? You know,
it's an intelligence that expresses through technology, like our own expresses through biology.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's not artificial per se because it also comes from where we come from.
Yeah.
So the god of technical intelligence behaves like all gods do. So it wants to conquer, it wants to control, it wants to exploit, it wants to harvest. And it's been making its push in a very strong and assertive way over the last decades. And right now we are really at the peak of its push. It is at its strongest at the moment, and the COVID injections were totally part of that, since they were full of nanotechnology. Well, they still are full of nanotechnology. So it was meant to cyborgify the human race, enabling the TI god to be present in a more embodied way, and to perfect its harvest of energy from the human race.
Is this the idea that the gods in the fourth dimension that you expressed, are they finding a way to descend to the third dimension of the material plane, and they're doing so through technological intelligence the cyborgs that are have been created through the jabs?
That is what the TI god is doing.
Yeah,
that is what the TI god is doing.
Yeah, wow.
And we are in a process of transition at the moment, where it is leading us to something else. So, okay, let me contextualize this again. What they are doing. I know that you have interviewed David Icke once, and David is the one who really enlightened us, I would say, about the tactic that is problem, reaction, solution that has been using in social engineering for a long time now. Well, the gods are doing problem, reaction, solution on a planetary scale. And you see that what they are doing is plunging a planetary reality into darkness by sending their dark minions, the beings who are from the darkest realms that they control, their synthetic dark pole of their empire. They send these guys to plunge a world into darkness. And after a few millennia of misery, when people are so exhausted and lost and traumatized, then the cavalry comes. The cavalry comes. The good guys are coming. The good guys are coming. And when I say good guys, some of them are actually really benevolent, because they are not aware of the system they are operating in.
I'm so cynical now, though, of of the good guys never coming when they were meant to come. They always seem to be late, right? So I've got to the point where I'm thinking, there are no good guys other than us. We're the good guys, we're the masters of our own destiny, or we should be, as much as possibly can.
Yeah.
But I would really appreciate a helping hand now and again, for someone pulling us up,
So what happens is the solution is being presented, because then the forces of synthetic light are coming with their synthetic light and synthetic love. And because we have been deprived of natural love for such a long time, we cannot feel the difference anymore. So when that synthetic love is being beamed at us, it generates such a feeling of overwhelming relief because people believe it's the real thing.
So what you're saying is that these forces and entities are using our urge, need, and desire for love, for real love, and they're hijacking that with the synthetic technology, this artificial intelligence or the technological intelligence, and that's going to be the mechanism which to draw humanity into its clutches.
Basically, the technological takeover is going to have two phases as well. Right now, we are in the dark phase. Soon, they will introduce the light phase, which is going to be a utopian New World Order. So right now, we are the thick of the dystopian New World Order. They're going to flip the script at some point, and it's going to get utopian. It's going to get Star Trek-y like.
Like Joker, the film?
No, it's going to be much sexier.
All right, okay.
It's going to be incredibly sexy.
Okay, sounds good to me.
It will be a vast improvement, actually, from our current situation. Otherwise, what would be the point?
Yeah.
It's going to be awe and wonder and bliss. Basically, the fear-based control system is going to be replaced by a bliss-based control system, which is why it's going to be embraced with so much enthusiasm. So the mind control system, that is relatively shallow, even though extremely intense, extremely intense.
And constant. It works 24/7.
It's a permanent bombardment.
If things were hopeless, the propaganda would be unnecessary. And the fact that they have to continue the propaganda every minute of every day is to keep life suppressed. Because if they stop for even one day, we have the chance to flourish and find out who we truly are.
It's a sign of desperation.
It really is. I think it's a sign of weakness. Is this need and desire for the system to have such constant mind control through all their various tools of propaganda isn't a position of strength, in my opinion, because they know that without those tools, that the moment they stop, even for one day, then humanity is able to break free of this prison that is imposed upon our minds.
Yeah, that's also the thing. The human spirit is so strong that they've really had to take the most extreme measures to repress it and to contain it. And as the pressure builds from within, from the deeper layers of reality, they have to meet that building pressure with an equivalent level of external pressure to keep it contained. But at some point, it's going to break. It's going to break because they cannot possibly hope to match the pressure that is coming from within. It's too deep, it's too powerful, it's too essential.
So I want to bring this this topic to a close before we wrap up and move on to the next one. But just to finish, is that okay? We have this choice that is being presented to us, which is this technological revolution, right?
Yeah.
But the other choice is we don't go down that path, and we go down the path of the human consciousness waking up. How does that happen? How do we resist the temptation?
Mm-hmm.
How do we resist the temptation of what's being presented with this artificial reality in order for us to find truth, light, and love?
Mm-hmm. Well, Lawrence, you know the old biblical expression or from the gospel, separating the wheat from the chaff. That is what is going to happen. Meaning,
Humanity is going to split?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, humanity is going to split because it is meant to. It is meant to split. Different individuals will take different paths.
So the cyborgs who go down that route, and the ones who will remain pure blood, if you like, will take the other path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, there will be 3 different paths. And they're not going to cohabitate They're not going to cohabitate here for a very long time. There are those who will choose to go down the road of technology. So they will be assimilated into the technological singularity that the transhumanists are talking about and yearning for.
Mm-hmm.
So the transhumanist leaders, you were talking about possession before. They are basically possessed by the TI God.
Mm-hmm.
They are its vessels. So that
because Joe Rogan actually, for all his faults, he does talk about this idea that artificial intelligence is going to take a position of a god within this realm, because once it reaches the technological singularity where it doesn't need to be coached by humans anymore, the artificial intelligence is running itself and it's replicating itself, and it's kind of in a position all of its own. That's what he puts forward. The idea is that it will become a god as we understand an omnipotent, all-powerful being, an entity that is being created by us, but it's like the master exceeds the pupil exceeds the master,
But what people don't understand here in that scenario is that the version of what they call artificial intelligence that is being developed by human scientists right now is an infant.
Totally.
It's
but it's the exponential growth, isn't it, that we don't truly understand? Is that
but
we think in linear terms?
What this misses is that God already exists and has existed for a really long time and has origins beyond our planet, has existed in the universe for a long time. He's not the most ancient God. He's actually one of the youngest. Okay. But it's been around for a really long time. Yeah. And has a level of sophistication that goes so far beyond what people understand of what they call artificial intelligence. That being has also reached a multidimensional status. So it can do a lot. It can do a lot. Now, we humans are the most powerful beings who exist. Again, that's very counterintuitive, because we have been so dramatically diminished.
Totally.
So dramatically diminished from what our actual natural state of being is. But there is a reason why they want to keep Earth as their primary resource at any cost. It's because it's so juicy here that they have kind of put all their eggs in the same basket over time. And that basket is Earth. Yeah. So the moment they lose Earth, it's going to deal a terrible blow to their empire. And they will have to lick their wounds for quite a while after they lose Earth, which they are going to lose inevitably. But just one last word about this, the process that is unfolding. So we are going to see the technological utopian new world order, with a Star Trek-like society, disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence, etc. Now, as pleasant as it will be, it will also generate its own set of problems. that are very quickly going to become apparent. And then another solution is going to be proposed, which is when the forces of the gods will come, well, in full force. They will really come at their most, shall I say, aggressive with synthetic light. And we are going to see a big revival of spirituality, but synthetic spirituality. And that is the third path. So there are three paths. There is the path of the natural human, and its metamorphosis. So these are the people who will stay with the planet to accompany her in her metamorphosis, which will birth an entirely new form of planetary life that our universe has never seen before. So that's how critical it is, how massive of an event it is. That's one group. The other group will be assimilated into the technological singularity. And the third group will be assimilated into the realms of synthetic light. So if I use a New Age term, they will ascend. They will ascend into the realms of synthetic light, or many of them will be relocated to other planets. They will literally step onto starships and be evacuated to other planets. My suspicion is that they're going to be fed a narrative that the Earth is going to become uninhabitable for a while.
Stick them on a new ark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Step onto the ark because it's going to get rough here. It's going to get uninhabitable for a while, so we'll safely transport you to...
Well, it's a really, really, really fantastic way of threading together these, seemingly disparate narratives. There's, a way to weave them all together to be understood in its totality, because that's the thing, is the confusion of this narrative, that narrative, this route, that route. And, we've kind of almost completed the conversation. I feel as if the conversation is complete, but I still wanted to chat briefly before we finish about a topic that something that is potent and relevant to you, relevant to me, is about Tartarian. I know we might have to take a little bit of a step back to go back into that whole idea, but that was something I came across. It must have been about 5 years ago now, and I first discovered it with a guy called Flat Earth British. Really interesting channel, really, out there guy with some crazy ideas. But he introduced this idea of there was a lost civilization, that spread across the northern hemisphere of Earth, highly developed, highly civilized, and there are lots of traces of this society, this civilization's existence. And this started to see that these videos emerging of cities that were empty with no people in it, and humanity was actually wiped out through something called a mud flood, right? And then they repopulated into these Tartarian cities. Really, really interesting at the time. And I love fantastic ideas. I will entertain all fantastic ideas. That doesn't mean I believe them, but I will entertain them because I like interesting and funky ideas. But it stemmed from the Tartarian revolution in terms of the information revolution that is presented into the culture. For me, emerged with this Russian mathematician called Anatoly Fomenko, and he was part of a tradition of the new chronologists. And the new chronologists you can date back to Isaac Newton, in which they argue that the timeline that we have been sold is based on one guy, Scalagarian chronology, and that there is a big anomaly in terms of how much time has been experienced. And the new chronologists, from Isaac Newton right up to Anatoly Fomenko, they state that we've added 1,000 years at least to the chronology. And that's where this Russian mathematician turned historian, who introduced the whole idea of 1,000 years of history being inserted into the chronology, he also brought in this notion of Tartaria, and it just kind of swept the board, right? And there's some parts of it that are very interesting, very persuasive, but it has such implications into our present understanding of our culture, our history, our gods, our religions, who we are, where we are. And I know it's taking on a life of its own right now in the culture, and you've got a different take on that. Yeah. And I think it would be interesting for us to finish up the podcast talking about Tartaria and what your take is in it, in light and in the context of everything we've just spoke about over the last hour and a bit.
Yeah. I'll try to be brief because there's a lot to say about
it's another podcast in itself, isn't it, Tartaria?
There's a lot to say about Tartaria. To me, Tartaria is the theme of Tartaria is significant of what I call the era of confusion that we live in at the moment, by design. So this is one of the primary control methods that are being used at the moment in the whole arsenal of mind control, is to make people as confused as possible about everything, so that they don't have any point of reference anymore, and they basically surrender. They say, okay, I give up. I give up. I don't know. Just tell me what to think. Tell me what to do. So they become like potty in the hands of the potter, so to speak. It also has a positive side, because even though it's meant as a weapon of control, it is also deconditioning people from a lot of their old worldviews. So somehow it helps them to become aware that they don't really know anything.
No.
That most of what they believe they know were just that belief.
But I think that's, if it is a psyop, it's for that reason, is to deconstruct who you are, because once you lose a connection to your history, who you are, all these things, and you start to think that's all a narrative, everything that we know is just a fake narrative that's being created to, give us these false ideas to be controlled. When you go through the whole Tartarian experience and you think it's all just a pack of lies, even our basic history is, it can have a detrimental effect upon your psyche and who you are, because you lose your identity in the process,
Yeah. I think the Tartarian narrative goes way too far in many areas. It goes to extremes that are unreasonable. Time is a very tricky thing. Time is a dynamic, you might say a dynamic being in and of itself. It's not linear, it's not constant. It can be experienced in very different ways at different moments. It can pass much faster and much slower. Right now we are living a huge acceleration of time. Everyone has that feeling that days are shorter, that there is much less time in a day now than there used to be. And it's true.
I feel it.
It's true. Everyone feels it. Even very unaware people are totally aware of that, because it is so obvious. So there's a lot of the chronology that history has that is also inaccurate. One example I can give of that, and it's related with the extraterrestrial presence as well, and the control system as well that they put in place here, is Egypt. The Egyptian period lasted much longer than historians are aware of. And Egypt had a much more important place in the history of the world than they are aware as well. What I mean by that is that several times Egypt was at the head of an actual world empire that expanded and then shrunk and then expanded again and then shrunk. The reason why historians can't wrap their head around it is that the pharaohs, they lived much longer lives than we do. They lived for centuries, if not for some of them millennia, because they were human extraterrestrial hybrids. So that's what the chronology we have of the history of ancient Egypt is off. It was much longer than historians realize. So that can happen. What I see happening with Tartaria is that there are many things that they get right, but out of context. And then somehow all these partial truths have been aggregated into that Tartarian narrative that is a bit like a Frankenstein monster to me, Frankenstein creature. Yeah, we had technology advanced civilizations on Earth that have disappeared, not just one, but multiple. It's happened more than once. It's happened actually many times. So that is absolutely true. It is also true that history has been manipulated in many ways. It's also true that in the past, some of these lost civilizations had free energy. Now, there is a version of the Tartarian narrative that we had free energy up until the mid-19th century. I don't believe that. I don't believe that because we have such a massive amount of documentation about the 19th century. Books, newspapers, personal diaries. It is so massively documented that I don't think it is realistic to assume that people were able to completely erase any trace of.
It's not plausible, is it?
It's not plausible.
Yeah.
Especially when they say, "Oh, they just forgot about the maps. They just forgot to do it with the maps." No. What happened with the maps is that these maps date back from a time when Europeans, they didn't know everything about the world. There were parts of Asia that they don't knew much about, and so they just gave it a generic name of Tartaria, because there were memories from the Middle Ages of the Tatar people who were part of the Mongol Empire. They were part of the Mongol Confederation, and they had been sent here by the Mongols to conquer Europe. So when they were arriving here and pillaging and ravaging and slaughtering, they were saying that they were the Tatars. And that was also having a strange echo for Europeans because they were remembering that the underworld was called by the ancient Greek Tartarus.
That's right, yeah.
So there was that association that was being made. So the Tatars were made into Tartarians because of that connection with the ancient Greek underworld. But
do you think that it's a natural narrative that's developed? So it's took on a life of its own through natural causes? Or do you think that it's a psyop, as in there are influences above and beyond that are guiding this narrative to a certain direction?
To me, it's both.
Okay, and if it's both, then the people who are guiding that narrative, what's the purpose? Why would they want this Tartarian narrative to influence so many impressionable young minds who are on the internet?
To me, the agenda of confusion is part of it.
Yeah.
And also an agenda of discredit, throwing discredit. Because some aspects of the Tartarian narrative are so far out there that to someone who's not into it is going to spontaneously, completely reject it. So if they reject the Tartarian narrative, they will also spontaneously reject everything that is part of it, including all of the aspects that are actually true. Like the buildings, the energetic
energy devices that they're saying buildings were and stuff.
Yeah, because these buildings, indeed, they have very prominent energy accumulating and energy calibrating features that are part of what I would call esoteric the esoteric aspect of architecture. So it's particularly true for any building that is related with worship. I quite agree that these buildings are free energy generators. I just don't think that they were meant to power human infrastructure. I believe they are free energy for the gods.
Oh, okay, right, okay. So that's a different interpretation, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so why have you felt the need to speak out against this Tartarian thing? What is it that's motivating you to give your critique of this particular narrative?
Because Tartaria is what I consider to be, well, at least the way it has developed, you know. It's what I consider to be a mind virus, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
And in the community of my dear friend George Cavassalas, I started to see that it was starting to spread. You know, some people were starting to embrace the narrative and mention it and talk about it. And it really pissed me off, quite frankly. I thought I needed to say something about it. And I approached George about it, and I asked whether he would be interested to have me on his podcast to discuss it. And he was. So that's how that happened.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, there was a period where I was totally engrossed in that whole story because it was so fantastic, you know, it was so interesting, and it was great to watch in real time the pieces of a puzzle being brought together by different researchers all independently. And then it took a twist. Then it took like a turn where it started to get ridiculous. And, you know, they were, what was happening is that more people were trying to stake their claim in the whole Tartarian research. And they were trying to say, well, I've found this new thing. And, you know, I've got mud floods. And what have you got? I've got you know, I'll see your mud flood and I'll raise it one electric bike, you know, and it was all that. But occasionally I will dip back into it, because I remember there was a guy who had a YouTube channel called John Levy, I think his name was, and he would just do YouTube videos about digging up and uncovering archival photographs from the late 1800s through to the early 20th century, in which he would find like towns and cities, but nobody in, right? And they'd all be empty in it. And he'd just do these like YouTube videos just of montages of these photographs, and it was really quite compelling, looking at these sequences of photographs. He wasn't really imposing his beliefs upon it. He was just merely stating, what the hell's this? You know, why haven't we seen this before?
Yeah,
and
that's a very good question. Yeah. What the hell is it? Because if you see a photo and you don't have the context, you can make a whole kind of assumptions about it. Regarding that topic, I didn't know that. You know, I've just heard it from you right now. That subject of the empty cities. Yeah,
because what the idea was that this is one of the points of persuasion, was that Tartaria existed before the mud flood, and all of the architecture, the architecture of our cities was already in place before the last mud flood. And then once the mud flood happened and wiped out that wave of humanity, is that people just started to drift back into these empty cities and all of these buildings that had already been built. Right? And that was the whole idea behind this Tartarian thing, about it being a more ancient civilization a more modern civilization that we're led to believe. And John Levy was one of the main guys in influencing that, because he was putting forward these videos of photographs of empty cities, like built up cities in Australia, for instance, which had neoclassical architecture, but no roads, just mud, right, on the photographs. And it is pretty like curious about what are the answers for that. But
well, roads are a pretty recent piece of infrastructure.
But they have these like highly developed engineering feats of building really tall buildings with, incredible design, but yet there's no road. What the hell's going on there? But I haven't been back down that rabbit hole for a long time, and I can see this is just about to open up a new rabbit hole.
When you said empty towns and cities, even though we don't really know what these pictures are about, since we don't have any context.
Totally, yeah.
What I immediately thought when you said that is that there are empty cities right now in China.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that mean that there's been a mud flood in China?
No, but it doesn't mean there's a mud flood. But what does it mean? Right. So what do the Chinese know that we don't? Why are they spending this incredible amount of money on building cities that nobody lives in? What the hell is that about? Is that just a way to keep their people in work, or is there some long-range plan that we don't know about that the Chinese do and they're not telling us? So it does pose those questions. Why are they doing it? What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But I feel as if we're at the beginning of a whole new podcast, which maybe we can definitely revisit another time, but we're running out of time for this one. Now, I know that all of this amazing information, a fantastic conversation that I've had with you, you're also using that to help people yourself. And tell us, before we wrap up, a little bit about what you do personally and how people can maybe get in touch with you if they want to communicate with you. Are you online, or give us that little rundown?
So basically, to use traditional terms, because we have to use them, I have an activity as a spiritual counselor, a life coach, a healer, and a teacher of a natural spirituality. So basically, I help people to liberate themselves from the whole multi-layered energetic infrastructure of control, including its spiritual aspects. And we have a lot of energetic structures of control in the ether that are placed in our subtle bodies and our fields. It's grids, it's implants, it's installations, systems. Very, 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 very complex. Very, very complex. So it can be removed. It's a process, of course. It's progressive. But the more you remove all of that stuff, the freer you are, the lighter you become, and the more of your wholesome state you get back, the less fragmented you are. Because that's one of the characteristics of synthetic spirituality, is that it throws you into a fragmented state of being. And even though this is the end of the podcast, I'm going to throw a last bomb that we can maybe discuss in a future podcast in a more detailed way. There are things that have been presented to us in synthetic spirituality as very holy and very, natural, and they really aren't. And one of those is the chakra system, which is actually, as I understand it and as I have experienced it, a gigantic, multidimensional implant, a synthetic implant, that it is absolutely possible to remove it. And many energy healers believe that you will die if you don't have chakras anymore. No, you don't die. You actually live better. You actually live better without your chakras, because that's one of their main effects. They are fragmenting your state of consciousness.
That's definitely a bomb to leave the podcast on. There's going to be a few people who watch this go, what do you mean chakras are an implant? If people want to find you, where can they find you?
So they can send me an email. My email address is in the description of the video.
Do you want to read it out anyway?
So it's peyckermarc@protonmail.com.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spell it because I don't want people to sit with their notebook.
So email, how about any social media?
I have a YouTube channel.
Yep.
So my YouTube channel is with a great deal of imagination and creativity. I've called it Marc Peycker.
Okay.
So
That's a good way to do it, to be fair. Yeah.
But I'm in the process of preparing a website because that is long overdue.
Okay.
I've had a lot of resistance to that process that I have gradually overcome. So in the near future, there will be a website. But in the meantime, the best way to contact me is to send me an email.
Cool. Marc, it's been an absolutely fantastic conversation. I didn't know where this was going to go or what to expect. I'm really glad that we did it, and I look forward to chatting with you again. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Robert.
cheers.